This is the miniature pattern of a Bustier Asymmetric Corset, and this is the full pattern of the same corset. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Linda. Here on this channel, I share videos about sewing, pattern drafting, and everything fashion. On today's tutorial, I'm going to be sharing with you guys how to draft and cut this corset you're seeing right here on the screen. If this seems like what you're interested in, you might want to hit that subscribe button and also tap on the notification bell for more videos like this. With that being said, let's just dive into the video. Firstly, I started off by drafting a half scale bodice on a pattern paper which is long enough to draft our pattern. So I have my bust point, which is 10 inches, my under bust 10 inches, waistline 17 inches, and then the full length of 25 inches. The next thing I did was to measure my nipple to nipple measurement, which is also known as the apex or the bust span. So I'll go ahead and draw the measurement on all the 4 lines I drew on this paper and then connect it with a straight ruler. So I decided to add about 2.5 inches upwards for the upper part of this corset. So this is going to serve as my chest line. If you want, you can extend by 3 inches because our corset is really asymmetrical and we need to have that angle around that part. So that is the reason for extending it further by 2.5 inches. Yours can be higher or even the same thing. So next thing I did was to share the measurements in between this part by equal parts. I have 4 inches there divided by 2 and I am left with 2 inches. So I'll go ahead and also draw a straight line to connect the dots. And I'll also extend the line upwards because we are dealing with that here. So the next thing I did was to come around the under bust line. I'm going to be taking 1 inch on both sides, which makes it 2 inches. So share your 2 inch on both sides of the dart and then connect it to the bust point with your curved ruler. After I was done, the next thing I did was to connect the dart legs. So as you can see, I'm measuring about 3/4 of an inch here, which is because I don't want to close it entirely. So I'll just go ahead and just extend the line like this on both sides. After I was done, I went ahead to place another line here for the shoulder darts. So to determine the measurement, I'll go ahead and divide this part by 2. Then I get the midpoint. From there, I'll be connecting a straight slanted line to meet at the bust point. So after which, I'm going to make adjustments for my bust tightening. So I'll be taking half of an inch here for my dart, and then on the other side I'll be taking 1 inch, which makes it 1.5 inch. And the next thing I'm going to do is to place my ruler this way and then connect it upwards like this, and also connect the other side with my curved ruler. So the next thing I'm going to do is to work on the second dart. So I'll go ahead and take out half of an inch on both sides on the line that indicates waistline, and also connect it downwards from the waistline to the top length, and then I'll shade it out. So guys, before taking the measurement for the remaining darts, I'll go ahead and take my body measurement first of all. For my bust line, I have 9 inches. So I'm going to mark that on the bust point and then also around this part of the chest line. And then I'll also go ahead and add my 1.5 inch for the dart intake, and then at the under bust line I'll just mark my normal body measurement without a dart. So at the waistline I'll be calculating what I am taking out for the dart, and then I'm going to add it up for my waistline measurement. And at the full length I'll go ahead and do the same thing and also add my required dart intake. So the next thing to do is to connect my dots into a straight line using a ruler. And after that, I'll go ahead to use a curved ruler to bring out the rest of the shape. Now I'll be drafting my third dart. So go ahead and take a measurement of what we have here around the under bust, excluding the dart allowance. Then divide it by 2. I have about 3.5 there. Divided by 2 gives 1.75. Then I'll go ahead and connect the line into a straight line. I'll be connecting it all the way to the top like this and all the way to the top length. After that, the next thing I did was to place my tape rule this way. I measured half of an inch, and then I'm going to connect it the same way I connected the second dart. So guys, another thing I did was to extend this part by 1 inch. So this is because I want to achieve that pointy edge of our corset, and then I'll be taking this part out entirely. I'll just go ahead and cut out the patterns. So I decided to extend these lines because I want my corset to be pointy downwards, so I won't fall short of fabric or paper. When cutting out your patterns, you should really take your time, and what you see me doing is just cutting through the lines, and I'll be removing the darts which I shaded earlier. So I didn't add any form of sewing allowance here because I'll be adding that directly when I'm cutting it out on fabric. So what I only added was just the dart allowance. After removing the dart allowance, I still have my correct measurement. So when cutting it out on fabric, I'm just going to be adding ½ inch all through, if that makes sense. Do you get? So after I was done cutting through, the next thing I did was to arrange them this way, and then I went ahead to number it temporarily. I just marked them as A, B, C, and D because I have 4 patterns here, okay? We have 3 darts and 4 patterns. So when I open it up, you're going to see how it actually looks like. So this is the middle piece which was on fold, and then I'm going to take the opposite sides which corresponds with each other and then arrange it in such a way that I will have multiple patterns. So this particular pattern is now open, it's no longer on fold. The next thing I'll do right now is to make sure they are complete, and then I'm also going to take note of the direction they are facing. Like I said initially, this is the midpoint. Now I'm going to be taping everything together temporarily because I want to achieve the pattern for this corset. So guys, after I was done sellotaping the patterns together, I went ahead to number the front pattern because this is the front piece. So I have 7 pieces for the front piece, and this is the midpoint like I specified initially. Now I'm going to extend the line at the waistline over to the other side. This is because I don't want to take any chances of making a mistake of where the waistline actually sits on when I'm about to draft the main corset pattern. So this is an arrow that indicates that the pattern is on fold, and that's the midpoint. Next thing I'm going to do is to actually trace this dart that I drew here, and I'm going to draw it upwards all the way from the lower part to the upper part. So when you look at the picture, you notice that the line that forms our symmetrical corset is almost straight. So I'm going to make some adjustments later on. For now, I'm just tracing a straight line from this part all the way down. That's going to serve as a guide to create our slanted line. To create the asymmetric effect, go ahead and draw a line just like this, 1 inch below your armhole, and gradually take your hand upwards to meet at that point where you drew a straight line. So if you don't understand what I'm doing, you need to pay more attention to actually get it right. So guys, to get the other effect for the other part of the corset, go ahead and also trace this line which we use to close our darts. Okay, this is just like the middle darts that we had initially, that we got from bust nipple to nipple measurement, the main dart. So just go ahead and trace it gradually. You don't have to rush it. Follow the line and then extend it all the way down to the length of the top. Like I said, this is a rough sketch. I will still come back later and adjust these lines. They need to be 2.5 inches away from each other. Placing my tape rule this way around this part, I want to make sure that the lines are corresponding with the measurements I took for my body. So as you can see, this is the upper part and I have my bust point and then under bust followed by the waistline and then the length of the top. I'm going to be adding extra 2 inches to achieve that pointiness on the lower part. Just as you see in the picture, the angle that runs from the right is much more shorter than the angle that runs from the left. On this other side of the right, I'm going to be coming down by 2 inches on the waistline, and then I'll be taking my ruler to connect it diagonally, just like this. So guys, after I was done, I moved on to the left side. The left side angle is about 3 inches longer than the right side angle. So I'll be measuring 4 inches on this side of the waist for the left. So 4 inches from the waistline downwards, and then I'm going to extend it this way to connect to this part. After I was done with the line, I went ahead to draw little holes around this part to indicate that this is the part that goes to the lobes and the eyelets. So this left side of the corset is 1.5 inches shorter than the right side. I'm just taking my time to make the lines so obvious for you guys to see. And then I went ahead to draw these lines to indicate that these are the loops that passes through the eyelets. And after I was done, I went ahead to cut it out. So guys, this is how it looks like after I was done. Next thing I will do right now is to cut through the lines. These are all the excesses I took out to achieve this pattern. I'm just going to be setting them aside and then I'll cut through this pattern to separate them just like the way it was drafted. So guys, after I was done, I went ahead to renumber it again. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4. This number 5 is usually not present, and then I have 6 and 7. So I'm going to arrange it this way and get ready to cut the back. So guys, for the back I drafted a half scale bodice, as you can see. So next thing I did was just to go ahead and take my waist measurement, and then I took my nipple to nipple measurement as well, just like I did for the front. And the length for the back is the same thing as the length for the front. So I'll go ahead right now and connect my dart line all the way down with my ruler to the length of this top. Next thing I did was to measure the length at which I want the back piece to start from. So I'm coming down by 8 inches, which also runs into my armhole line, and then I'm just going to roll a straight line to connect it this way. After I was done, I decided to slant the line a little bit by 1 inch because I want my back piece to look somehow slant at the top. So I extended the dart line, and then at the waistline I marked half of an inch on both sides, then connected the dart leg. After I was done with the dart, I went ahead to take my body measurement for the back piece. So I'm marking 9 inches, and then for the waistline, I'm going to be marking my waistline circumference divided by 4 plus the dart I'm taking out. So go ahead and just replace the dart. That is the only allowance I'm adding. Then at the length, I'm going to mark my hip line measurement and replace the dart as well. So after I was done, I went ahead to connect the sides like this and also completed the lower part using a curved ruler. So now I'm going to take the measurement for the distance between these two parts and get the midpoint. So what I have there is 4 inches, the midpoint is 2. I'm just going to make a point there, and because that will be serving as our dart. So just go ahead and just make a point if you want your back piece to have 2 darts. But for me, I'm okay with just 1 dart because I don't want to have too many pieces for the back piece. So I'll just make dotted lines to indicate that. Now this is optional. If you want to have a dart there, you include this measurement. But if you don't want, you can just go ahead and leave it like that. So I'll go ahead and cut it out. After I was done cutting, I went ahead to open it up, and then I want to align the sides for the front. So this is number 1 for the front piece. I'm going to just align it using the waistline to determine where I'll be marking this waistline for the back. And for the other side, I'll just go ahead and place the number 7 of the front piece. You can see that the waistline for number 7 is much more longer than the waistline for number 1. So I'll just use my marker to indicate that. And what I'll do next is just to place them right side to right side facing each other like this. And then I'll trace it all the way to the center of the back. So guys, I decided to place the front piece on top of the back piece with the right sides facing each other. That's going to serve as a guide for me to trace the correct outline and the waistline for the back. This is the most simplest way, and it has made it much easier for me to achieve the back without wasting much time. Now I will just go ahead and place my ruler this way to trace the sides for this part. So as you can see, I made a dot, and I'm just going to draw a straight line to connect the dot to get to the center back. So this is what I had. After I was done drawing the line, I'm just going to repeat the same thing on the opposite side. Remember that one side is way more shorter than the other side. The difference there is just 3 inches apart. So I'll be taking 3 inches like this on the midpoint, just like I did for the front, and then I'm just going to use my ruler to connect everything. After I was done drawing the lines, I went ahead to cut it out. So guys, after I was done cutting, this is how it looks like. I'm just going to align it properly for you guys to see, and I'll be extending the waistline over to the other side of the paper. Now this is what I have. I'm going to draft out a segment that will be replaced by the loop. On the center back, which is the midpoint, I measured 1.5 inches because I don't want my loops to be very close, so I'm going to be separating it a little bit instead of leaving it the way it appears on the picture. So I'll do away with this one, and I'll draw little circles to identify where the eyelet sits at before cutting it out. So this is what I had after I was done cutting, and I'm just going to align them just the way it looks like on the back. So guys, this is what the back piece looks like after I was done cutting. The next thing I will do is just to arrange them according to how they should look like before cutting it out. This is how it looks like after I was done arranging them in order. So I'm going to label this part of the corset as the left part. I have about 4 left, and then I'll label this other side as the right side. The right sides are 6 in number. Now I have 10 pieces of patterns, and this part where I drew crisscross lines is not really needed because that's going to serve as our underwear in our corset. So the lines you see represent the loops that crosses over the inner wear. So guys, I'm going to remove this entirely, and then I'll make adjustments between these two. I'm going to be deducting just a little from here, so I'll slant my hands upwards from the bust point. I'm going to take away about 1/2 inch, and from the bust point I just slanted my hand and took out about 1/2 inch more, stopping at the waistline. Then I drew straight line from that part all the way down and cut it away. Now for this other side, I'm going to place my hands on the bust area and then give it a little bit of slant. I don't want it to be so curvy because as you can see in the picture, there is no curviness around there. So what I took out was about 1/2 inch, so I'll just slash it off. If it's not enough, I will still go ahead and still trim it a little bit more. So just take your time to adjust it to your taste. Just don't make it so curvy. So guys, that will be the end of the part 1 of this video. In our next video, I'm going to be cutting it out on fabric, and we're going to be stitching it as well. Please do well to like this video so that YouTube will show it to more people who might want to learn from this tutorial. So I'm going to be making use of this leftover Ankara batik here for the part 2. Like and share this video, comment your thoughts, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.